Shalom everyone. Today we'll start the section of Kriyat Shema, the reading of the Shema and the reciting of those paragraphs. I'm sorry, in the notice I wrote the blessings, but that will be a little bit later. So yesterday we actually discussed in the Haggadah Shir about the idea of repeating the third paragraph. So it'll be quite interesting to see that conversation. So we start with it is a positive biblical commandment to recite Shema at night and in the morning, as it is written, Deuteronomy 6:7, and you shall say them when you lie down and when you get up. When you lie down denotes nighttime, because that's where most people go to sleep, and when you get up refers to morning, because that's when most people get up. The very first Mishnah, the first beginning of all six books, all six orders of the Mishnah, is when do we have to, from when are we allowed to say the Shema in the evening? And afterwards, the Talmud for 3 pages discusses why do we start with that law? Because the night comes before the day, because of the verse in Genesis and creation, Vayhi Erev Vayhi Boker, and it was evening and it was morning, day one, etc. And so, and also in that verse that we just quoted, when you lie down comes before when you get up, because the Jewish day starts in the evening. So that's how it was written, and that's how Rabbi Yehuda Nasi begins all the Mishnah, all 6 orders of, with the idea of when are we allowed to say the Shema in the evening. So just a general introduction. Rabbi Melamed continues, which is in all Sidurim. There's no minhag that is different from this. So we read 3 paragraphs. The first, Shema Israel, Hear O Israel, which is Deuteronomy 6, verses 4 to 9, with which we accept the yoke of heaven, which means that we accept that Hashem is in charge of everything, and which discusses also the unity of and love of Hashem. So the unity of the people of Israel towards the love of Hashem, and that's how a proper family is supposed to operate, where there's a parent or 2 parents and there's children, and yes, of course, there's always fighting, but there's some things that are so uniting, like this sentence. And I think I mentioned this earlier in our study, and my friend, when we joined the actual crew for the tank, where we're going to be with this commander for the next year or 2, and he said, do you know the first words of the Shema? And he said, no. He says, why do you want me to know that? He says, because I'm not going in the tank without you learning them. So that's how we teach the unity of Israel, that we are all in acceptance. And obviously there will be different understandings of what that means, but the unity of the people of Israel is the Shema Israel. The second is Vayayim Shema. Those are the first words, which is and if you will follow, which is from Parshat Ekev, Deuteronomy 11, verses 13 to 21, which includes the acceptance of the yoke of the mitzvot. So now that we declared that we accept that we have a God who tells us what to do, then we also have to accept those things that God tells us to do. And the third is Vayomer, which is not in chronological order in the Torah. This is from the book of Numbers, chapter 15, 37 to 41, including a command to remember the mitzvot through the commandment of tzitzit and the mention of the Exodus from Egypt. Just a cute gematria, Rashi says that the reason why, the reason how tzitzit reminds us of all the commandments is because if you take tzadi yud, and tav, which are the letters for tzitzit, that equals 600, plus the 8 strings that are on each corner, and also the 5 knots, that comes out to be 613. The Ramban actually says, what kind of Torah did you have, Rashi? Because according to our Torah, there's only 1 yud in the word tzitzit, which would be 590. But I didn't ever find a proper explanation or answer to that question. And maybe Rashi did actually have a Torah that had 2 yuds in that word. The Chachamim, so the sages, arranged the Shema paragraph to precede Vayayim Shema, so that a person will first accept the yoke of heaven and only afterwards accept the yoke of the mitzvot, because it makes sense. They also placed Vayayim Shema, which involves a general mandate to keep all mitzvot, including those performed during both day and night, before the Vayomer paragraph, which discusses the mitzvah of tzitzit, performed only during the day. And this morning, actually, Rabbi mentioned again that during the eclipse, do we have to wear tzitzis or not? But nobody is going to take off their tzitzis for a minute and a half and then put it back on. The question was, are you allowed to, like, if you woke up late and you realize, oh no, there's an eclipse now, are you allowed to put on the tzitzit while the eclipse is going on? And the answer is probably not. But again, he didn't give an answer. In the opinion of some Rishonim, the biblical commandment is just to recite the verse Shema Yisrael. According to them, this is the meaning of these words I command you today, must be in your heart when you lie down and when you get up. So, of course, they're skipping some words there. However, the Chachamim instituted reciting the entire 3 paragraphs. And the difference is that when there's a minority opinion, is if you're pressed for time, let's say that the time is finishing right now, at the end of the 3rd hour. So if you manage to get those first 6 words in, then at least you kept the time for Shema Yisrael for that first verse. It can be explained that the essence of the mitzvah of Kriyat Shema is indeed that a person accepts upon himself the yoke of heaven, and for that reason, even one who only recites the first verse fulfills the biblical commandment. Yet, the more a person enhances acceptance of the yoke of heaven, the more completely he fulfills the biblical commandment. A lot of people have a problem with the 3rd word of it says b'chol levavcha b'chol nafshecha b'chol modecha. So b'chol levavcha means with all your heart, b'chol nafshecha means with all your soul, and b'chol modecha there's 2 different translations. The simple meaning of the word modecha means all you have. So that would be referring to monetary or physical. But there's a different one which is with all of your might, meaning that you're willing to even sacrifice your life fighting for the sanctity of Hashem. And so some people have a problem with that because it's much easier to live with Hashem's commandments than it is to die, because most people have a lot of different ideals, and dying for the sake of Hashem is not always one of them. When we were kids, we used to joke that there's a lot of good ideals in the world, but don't die too soon, because there's some ideals that might be worth more than the ones that you believe in right now. And that was during the Soviet Union. We understood that it doesn't make sense to sacrifice your life just because somebody told you to go to the front line, but you don't understand what we're doing there. So it was cute, but with Hashem, it's a little bit more complicated to have that feeling and to understand fully what that feeling is. And so therefore the Chachamim instituted the recital of all 3 paragraphs, for within them are the fundamentals of faith, the acceptance of the yoke of the mitzvot, and the remembrance of all the mitzvot through the mitzvah of tzitzit. Hence, in actuality, we fulfill the biblical mitzvah by reciting all 3 paragraphs. One last thing, we'll end with that. There's a Siddur, I think, of the Chida, who was a Sephardi rabbi who lived in Turkey most of his life, Rabbi Chaim Yosef David Azulai, and he actually enumerates throughout the 3 paragraphs all the 10 commandments. And so, next to Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad is written, this is the 10th commandment for number 1, which is Anochi Hashem Elokecha, I am the Lord your God who took you out of Egypt. And so he goes through all the list throughout the Shema, but I haven't seen that siddur in a very long time, so that's why I'm not sure that it was Chida. But I think that that's a good way to look at it, that there's some very, very basic faiths that we have. We don't always agree about all of them. I'll just give an example from my Christian friends. They believe that we have to look for the Messiah. Maimonides, when he wrote the fundamentals of faith, didn't mention that. He just mentioned that you have to believe in the coming of the Messiah. And so it sounds like a tiny difference, but it really is a big difference, because it's not our job to bring the Messiah. It's our job to keep the commandments and to believe that Hashem will do whatever Hashem does when it is the right time. And so I think that's, for me, that's the meaning of this yoke of heaven, to understand that Hashem directs everything, and there's a plan for everything, and that's what I concentrate.